share a little bit about like your journey into Atmos. I mean, you got into it kind of early days in Nashville and have really kind of helped shape the Nashville sound quite a bit. But you're at BMG Studio A, and bring us into how it all started for you.
Well, I was exposed to Dolby Atmos when the Frozen movie, and that was, kind of piqued my interest. And then I was up at Bob Ludwig's studio Gateway up in Maine, and he took me into a room, and I'd never really heard music in surround at that time. He took me in a room and goes, "Karen, I'm going to show you something, Jeff." And he takes me in a room and sets me down and plays me the Roy Orbison black and white in 5.1. And there went my kids' college fund. That was, it was done. I got to do this, So, and, ironically, across the street here, my buddy Chad was over there at Westlake, and we talked really early on. This was probably 2018, and he was like, "Man, this Atmos thing, I know." And so he convinced me to take the plunge. And usually I'm the guy that gets it wrong. I'm beta versus VHS. That's me, and I always get it wrong. But this time I got it right. So I got a call from our CEO at BMG, John Loba, and he said, "Hey, this Atmos thing is starting to take off, and he actually called it Dolby Atlas." So he goes, we don't understand this. And I said, "Well, it sounds like you don't." So we got together, and he just walked me around the offices until we found a room. Literally built a room inside BMG, and it's been insane ever since. That was right before the pandemic, and so it's been crazy ever since. So nuts. But
man.
Yeah.
And fast forward to now, you've done Eric Church, Lainey Wilson, Jelly Roll, Jason Aldean. I mean, you've kind of helped shape some of the sound of the
thank you,
Nashville Atmos scene here.
It's changing every day, and I always say the beauty of my job is I get to be a human jukebox. It's like I get to do that stuff here, but I've done other stuff like Wiz Khalifa and Wolfgang Van Halen, Mammoth 2. I did that, and it goes on and on. And we were talking earlier, I'm really enjoying the Latin stuff. There's a guy named Alex Ponce and Nashi Nashi, and they're kind of out on that Latin tour with Bad Bunny and all that stuff. Anyways, and they're amazing, and it's just so much fun. The music is a blast. Don't know what they're saying, but I'm enjoying it. It's so much fun.
So share a little bit about like your general approach and kind of your sessions, how you lay things out, what you're looking to achieve when you go into it, and kind of your philosophy for treating kind of beds and objects, and how you get into it.
Well, there's different hats, different things, depending on the producer. You've got all kinds of different producers in town. There's guys that are, I want it just like the record, just Atmatize it, those guys. And then you got guys that are like, "Oh, let's have fun." And then you got guys that are, "Let's go nuts," so, and everything in between. So that kind of changes your approach to the way you do it. I've got a template that I use for mixing, and I got a template that I use for mastering. And then I've got a template I call Atmos First. So I use those three depending on what I'm doing. So if it's something that I'm getting stems from, the producer, the stereo engineer, that'll determine, what I'm doing and how I go about it. If it's something that I'm producing and something that I'm starting from scratch, I go Atmos First. I have been for almost a year now of everything I do. And I'm telling you, people sometimes look at you like you're crazy, and they go, how do you even wrap your brain around? It's no different. You just got to start with it, and you got to go for it. The first time, you're going to suck. I promise you. I did. It was awful. I was like, "Oh my God, I got to start over." But once you kind of get the feel of, literally, if you start on drums and you're starting with a kick drum, pull your kick drum up, do your business. EQ, compression, clean it up, whatever, and put that in Atmos or however you're going to spread that around the room. Start that right from the beginning and mix all the way through until you get that sound and the way you want it to sound. This is the best I can get it. I'm happy with it. I don't put headphones on. I know some people look at me like I'm nuts. I don't listen through headphones at all when I'm mixing. I trust my speakers. I trust my room. And I also don't look at the OKFS. Sometimes I'll be popping -9 and just having a blast, And then if you put a pair of headphones on, you go, "Oh Lord, that's not good," But I don't care because I'm going to master it. So I basically just mix and get it hot and where it sounds great in the room. And then there's my Atmos pre-master. And at that point, I'll save it, save as, and I'll save another one, same thing, and I call it my stereo master. And then I hit the magic button, which has changed my life, and that's 2.0 Direct. If you haven't tried it, it's unbelievable. You hit it, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm 95% there. It goes, and usually typically what I've found is the vocal's a little bit too hot, the bass is a little bit too hot because I've been doing tricks with the rear and the front, and things are folding in differently than they did when you use the 2.0, because it went to what, 5.1
first.
Yeah.
And this bypasses that. And
So it's like, man, this is great. It cuts my workload and my time frame. And the best thing, labels love it. And here's why. They come into your room, they approve the Atmos mix, and they approve the stereo mix one time, not 14 trips. That's, for them, that's just, that's time is money. And they get to set their release dates and have everything on a schedule and not have this last minute, oh my God, it's Wednesday, I got a whole entire album to do by Friday in Atmos because we forgot, or. Right. So for me, it's a godsend. It's the greatest thing ever. So and it gets better and better. The more you get used, it's a learning curve. It's not, I wouldn't do it on a big record if I was just starting to practice a few times and do some things. But when you hit that button and you flip it up and the mix is 90% there, man, that's a good feeling, So, but yeah, so that's kind of.
Yeah, I think in particular for original music that's being created in frontline material, where you're starting with your Atmos mix, and so maybe you're working with the wider palette from the beginning, and then you're creating a separate re-render and a separate deliverable, and you also have that monitoring format too, so you can listen to them both and kind of A/B. It's improved your workflow. It's improved the end result in that stereo deliverable, and it's improved the relationship for QC as well. So it's like checking a lot of efficiency boxes, but it's also a better sonic product for you.
And there's I don't really know why what I'm about to say happens, but when I've mixed in stereo and then I print stems like I'm printing them for an outside mixer, and then it makes it in Atmos, the stereo mix is never quite as good as it could have been. And the reason why, I don't know really why, but when you're mixing in Atmos, of course, you've got all this real estate and you hear everything. You hear little counter melodies that you might not be able to hear. And you, when you have instruments that are competing instruments, say a piano and an organ, and you're having the low pass and do all that kind of, high pass this, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do that so much in Atmos. You just move it around, find this little spot. And for me, when it folds back down to 2, all of a sudden you have this clarity that you don't have. And maybe it's just my brain going, thinking, but I feel like my 2 mixes are way better now doing them in this process than they were before. So yeah, so it's fun. I try it. You might not like it, but I love it. It's amazing.
I mean, it can also help with delivering material for a day and date release as well. So you're increasing that efficiency as well. You shared with me a couple of projects, Time Jumpers, your most recent one with Wendy Moten, but then the Tommy Emmanuel stuff that you were doing as well, where you're actually capturing the performances in studio or the recordings meant for mixing in Atmos first. So going into the project, thinking about how to mic it, thinking about how to capture, making creative decisions based on what's happening in Atmos is a workflow you've been employing for a while now and are refining as well.
Well, starting with the Time Jumpers, huge fan. I mean, Western swing at its finest. But and I've met Joe Spivey and Wendy and everybody, and we decided to go in and cut this on. So we cut no click. Ooh, Lord, no click, old school. Let's go in there and get it. We did overdub Wendy's vocals back at BMG Studio A the next few days after that, but the rest of it was live. I think we did maybe 2 overdubs, just a little flub here, a little flub there, and that was it. So it was kind of old school recording, upright bass, twin fiddles, separating everybody's, and we mic'd everything where some things were close mics, some things we had room, like I had room mics on the fiddles to get the ambience of the room because it sounded so good in there. So going into that, the way we mic the drums, we did everything with Atmos in mind. Okay, we're going to try to make this where you feel like you're part of the Time Jumpers and, you know, standing in the middle with Wendy. So you don't have to change a lot of things that you do. There's guys that are in this room that I've heard some things they've done where they've just mic'd up, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. You know, for country music and this kind of thing, it's more of a in-your-face kind of thing, and it just seemed to work better just to do, you know, traditional miking with a few little added extras, a few things on the fiddle, a few things on the drums, but the rest of it was pretty much, you know, traditional way of doing it until you start the mix process and editing process. But and then with Tommy, I have a little show called Enter the Atmosphere where I goofy and talk about Atmos stuff. And Tommy is a friend, and he came on the show to play live, which is like, if you've never heard Tommy Emmanuel, the guy's just, he's sick. Yeah, he's not right. But he set up and I mic'd him. I had a DPA 4011 on him and just mic'd him up in the room, and I had the, because I was trying it out, the Sennheiser, what's it called? That ambisonics thing, yeah. Which is pretty cool. So and I had that running through a Neve 1073 OPX, and then that's Dante'd into my rig, and that's kind of my workflow there. And then I filmed him and go, you know, so we kind of mixed it live and, you know, added a little 714 verb on it, just kind of livened it up, but it was so cool to do. But yeah, I don't know, that was the first time I'd ever recorded, and literally the output was, you know, binaural, you know, so it was fun. But yeah, so.
Wow, that's so cool, man. Well, I want to make sure we have time for questions. Thank you for sharing all of that. I mean, it's so cool what you're doing and pushing things forward. I'm sure folks have questions about how you're doing, what you're doing. So feel free.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you say the Magic 2.0 button, is that like 5 on the numeric keypad? Or?
Oh, no, that's when you're in the renderer and you pull down where it says physical, you'll see physical on the left. If you pull down that menu, there's everything 5, blah, 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 down to 2.0, down to 2.0 direct. That's what I call the Magic. Yeah, that's, put it there, and it's pretty cool.
Make sure you've got renderer 5.3, so it's a separate re-render and monitoring layout, which allows you to create that stereo deliverable from it. So
and thanks for hooking me up with that.
You got it, dude. Yeah.
It's been awesome.
If you zapped the QR codes there, you're on the right track if you don't have it yet.
Cool.
Yeah. Magic button. I like it.
Magic button.
I mean, you could probably like make it be 5 if you wanted to.
Yeah, you could do a little command.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Just curious, in studio, like what are you using? You have a Avid S4 or S6 or something. What do you use to mix?
I'm an old school mouse guy. I had an S4, 5 bucket, or you know, S6. I can't remember now what it was, and I just didn't like it. I tried it. I've tried everything under the sun, and when it gets right down to it, I'm faster with the mouse. So my setup's really minimal. I mean, it's not. There's a lot fancier studios than my room. I've got Genelecs around the room right now. I've tried some new things that I'm really impressed with too. The Neves. I heard those. They're pretty sick. But I basically have an Apple Studio rig. Everything's Dante'd. I've got a little vocal booth next door, just for when I need to cut something, which is occasionally I have to cut a vocal and this and that. But yeah, and then it's a 714 room. It's small. It's not the proper anything, but I had what's the guy's name from Doby that came out and tuned the room?
Probably Brian or Jonathan.
It was Brian, Penny, yeah. He came out and tuned the room. I think it took him like 20 hours. It took a while. It was crazy, but wow. I mean, it sounds great. And I learned it from that, you know, and just, that's the reason why and I use the Odyssey, you know, the MM500s. I love those. Those are great. And not that I've said headphones. I wouldn't bash in headphones. When I'm mastering, I have another template for that, and I bring everything into that template. And then the first thing I do is I make note of where I printed my pre-master. And if I am printing -9, then I'll chop another 9 off just to get it closer to 18, just where I'm starting at that point. and then I'll monitor through headphones, you know, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you know, that process to get it rocking so we can sound good on iPhones.
But do you use anything for like joystick, trackball, any kind of little controller to
No.
help you place things? Or?
No, I use the mouse, and a lot of times, I love, one of my favorite things to do when I'm mixing is if, let's say you got like a pad, like a keyboard pad, and it's higher register. Usually you'll find higher register things you want to bring up into the room a little higher just because it cuts a little better. But I'll take a keyboard and just raise it up in the room just a little bit, and then just put it in touch, put my mouse on it, and, you know, just do this little number back and forth. Do it in time, you know, just kind of groove with it, and just gives it just a little bit of something. It's nothing you're going to go, what was that? You know, but you feel it, and that's the subtle things add up. Little bitty things like that make a big difference. So, but yeah, just a old school mouse. That's me. Yeah.
Whenever you finish your mix, just going back to mastering, so you print the ADM from your mix and then import it to your
Correct.
mastering template?
Mm-hmm. I print the ADM in Pro Tools, and then I import it back into Pro Tools into my mastering template. It actually, I say that, and then people go, "That's not exactly." Well, I open up a brand new session, import the ADM, and then I take the bed, and I call it fillet of fish. I fillet it down to mono, so it's all mono, and then I hide that, and then I import my template on top of it. And what it does for me is it keeps, even though someday Dolby will let us put names across the bottom, but it keeps it where I know what
feedback loop.
yeah. At least I know, start with 11, what that is in my template. And I always do it the same. I have certain things that are always on the exact same object channels, and it's boom, 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 and it goes. So, and it correlates to my mix template. So my mix template and my mastering template. So when I import it, it knows what it is, and it instantly puts it in the right color group and where it's at. It's super easy. And then my method of mastering is I print a mono version of the song, and that goes into my key groups, and then those I use to trigger anything dynamic. So like a compressor or a limiter or a de-esser or whatever it might be, that's your key input. So it gives you, it's not exactly like the 2-mix working into it, but it gives you that feeling, and you can really, just smash it and get it where it needs to be, closer to the original 2-mix. So yeah.
And whenever you are mixing like -9 or like +5,
Yeah.
and you bring it in, do you clip gain? Do you clip gain your?
Yeah, what I'll do is sometimes I do. I mean, I have a trim at the top and trim at the bottom. So I'll trim coming in, and I try to trim it before I go into my my little mono mix, because if I don't, then your compressor's going like this right at the start, and you got to trim back. So, but it changes every time. But that's pretty much my working method. And then once I get it in there and I get it sounding all EQ, compressed, whatever I'm doing, and get it rocking, and then just start trimming back on the trim. So I keep all my levels, all the meters across, are all set to unity, so that it's real easy. And the cool part about it is when they're grouped like that, a lot of times when you're EQing a whole entire mix, you add a little top, you add a little bottom, whatever you're doing. Sometimes that'll, especially in Atmos, it'll affect the vocal too much. That little 30K rollback, where you pump just a little air. Sometimes that's too much on the vocal, and all of a sudden you've added in, things you don't want. So all you do is take your groups, turn your groups off, and go to that particular one and pull it back, and then turn them back on, and now you've got it. It's still working together, but it's so it's cool. But yeah, it's just crazy how you have to get it in there. Everybody looks at me like it's nuts, but I'm used to it now. But it's funny. Yeah. Yes.
How are you handling output limiting? Are you doing the exact same thing where you're sending a key out from that mono down mix back to limiters on each of the channels?
Yeah. So like the last thing in my chain is I love Fab Filter. It's no mystery. I love their stuff. The Fab Filter, the L2 thing, whatever it's called, that's always last in my chain. I do have one thing that I put on the bed that just for a little something else. But that's the last thing in the chain all the way across. And what I'm doing with that is when I'm listening back or watching the meters and trying to hit, 18, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but there was a time when we could all squeeze it down to 16, 16, anything 16 and above, we're okay, but everything's coming to that limiter. I'm limiting and getting it where it sounds right. And then the final thing is the trim. So the trim, I'll just pull it down and I just play it all the way through. It's boring. I usually get my assistant to do it, but play it all the way through until I'm close to 18. So, yeah.
How often do you reference some stereo master?
A lot. The first, my order of workflow is the first thing I do is usually if I have it the night before, I'm a weird guy. I ride this crazy scooter and I got headphones and I'll if you've seen my show, it's an 80-mile-an-hour scooter. It's crazy. I'll ride it headphones and I'll be listening to it on the way into work just to get myself familiar with it. And but then I put it in the template and it's always there and I'm always going back and forth. And I probably listen to it more so in the mixing stage than the mastering stage, which sounds backwards. But usually if I get it pretty close, and I'll still put it in there, and just to reassure myself that I've remembered to clip it, make it the same length and all that good stuff. And it's important to listen to it, especially some producers are really, really particular about that. And then when you got guys like Jay Joyce that have incredible ears and you wouldn't believe some of the things he's told me in the past. Hey, the mandolin part in verse 2 is 1 dB louder than the mellotron part. And I didn't even know there was a mellotron on the thing. Yeah, sure enough, you go back and look, oh, that. Yeah, so there's, it depends on who you're working for. But it lets you, just keep it the way it needs to be to keep everybody happy. So yeah.
On the topic of working with labels and the joy of delivery requirements and all of that, I'm curious, in this Atmos first workflow, how do you approach printing stems? Is it like a one at a time kind of thing, or have you figured out how to?
Yeah, this is cool. I forgot to mention that. That's the other part that's like the yes. Yeah. So if you're breaking everything out and you're doing, the way I mix is I have the drums are in the bed. That's the only thing I put in the bed. So the drums are in the bed. Everything else is an object. Sometimes I'll even put the drums in the bed. And objects. It just depends on how many I got. I have a tendency to run out a lot. But so when you've got everything in an object format, you got the bass, you can easily make groups real quick and then just, you don't have to print them. You just one button and you're there. It's there. It'll automatically spit it out for me however I need it to be. So it's you have to see my template. It's set up to do that. So I can print drums only, I can print a vocal only, I can print the guitars by themselves, or just like that, and not have to go in real time and sit there and watch it do its thing. Yeah, just basically commit and go. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
But you are addressing one stem at a time. There's not like
two sets of stems. If I'm mixing and I'm not doing the Atmos, a little different story, because they want the typical label, no vocal, blah, 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 blah. And then they also now, of course, they want the stems for Atmos. So I'll do kind of both at the same time kind of thing, depending on what it is. But if it's for me, then I'm just going in there and doing what I need to get it done, yeah. But it speeds up the process a lot. It really, really, it's cool, yeah. Yeah, it's fun.
Have you, I know you're doing a lot of Atmos first now, and I think that's fantastic. That's where I would love to be too. Have you ever done Atmos and stereo in the same session at the same time?
Yes, that's how I do it. That's
okay.
it. Yeah, so when I'm
I mean, without the magic button.
Yeah, well, no, yes and no.
Yeah.
What I'll do is, a lot of times when I'm mixing, because if you notice when you hit 2.0 direct, he goes, and I have ADHD, and boy, that's too much time for me to be thinking. That is I'm gone. I'm off. Squirrel, I'm mixing 3 songs down the road. So I'll use the 2.0 because it's instant. So I'll just pop 2.0, listen to it, go, okay, all right, I'm in the ballpark. back to physical, keep working. So I do that all through the whole entire process. So especially when, I don't know why, but toms, they drive me nuts because I can't seem to. I'm still fighting with that. I struggle with getting them because you want them big and huge, and then when you bring it back into 2, they sound thin for a little. I don't know, it's me, but and I've found that just finding that right spot, if you're going to move them a little bit into the room, you got to be careful with it because it gets phasey and all that joyful fun. But yeah, so yeah, it's an all-in-one kind of type process. So, but at the end of the day, once I get the Atmos mix totally right and saved, and I printed my pre-master, then I'll flip to 2 direct and then work from there as a new session save. So, and get that right. And you could go the other way around, but no, I think it's better to go that way. I like going Atmos first. I'm just hooked on it. It's fun. So, yeah.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, you bet.
I'm currently building a room, Dolby room, and you're using 714?
I'm in 714. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, and you've lived with that for 3 or 4 years now, right?
Well, this is my 3rd room that I built.
Okay.
So my first, I've had a PMC room, I've had an ATC room, I've had now the Genelec room. So, and the reason I went with Genelec is when I first walked into BMG with our CEO, he took me on a tour, and I saw 12,000 pairs of Genelecs. I went, okay, well, they're used to listening to this. Maybe I'll try Genelec. Yeah. So, but I
That answers part of my question there, because my question deals with compatibility to the rest of the world. In designing a room from the start, scratch, right? We're using ATCs, 150s, and 45As. I'm thinking of switching over to PMCs, the 8s.
and I would, it all comes down to salt and pepper. The real at that level, the Neumanns are amazing. The PMCs, you got to get used to them, and you got to tune the room. They're a little smiley face, but and that's a big part of it. It's how you tune it, and
You nailed the root of my question.
Yeah.
Tuning the room.
well, that's a loaded one there because it's you got varying views.
It is, though. I mean, it's a real
Some people like the Atmos curve, the Dolby curve, whatever you want to call it. Other people are flatliners. I mean, you got in it.
What are the standards for tuning the room?
Yeah,
Are there several going on at once? Or is
No. I mean, there's a standard. The Dolby Atmos curve was discovered as what will, in most cases, translate best to consumer-based systems. Now, you can choose to use it or not. We can encourage you to. I mean, we have a dedicated studio team that will understand your room. That's actually done in the field now as part of our certified service partner program, which there are some people in the room here that do it. They'll make a dart diagram of your room with whatever speakers you choose.
The Dolby calculator, room calculator?
Yeah, the Dolby Atmos room design tool. Yep. And so we can, have a look at what speakers you're wanting to put in there, the dimensions of the room, and they can give you feedback based on, what your budget needs are and all of these other things. And so it's absolutely, pretty much imperative that you go through that process, and so that you're going to achieve best results and that it's tuned correctly. But you'll definitely want to have it tuned, and you'll want to go through the dart. For sure.
How long did it take you to get used to this new environment and really feel confident that what you're hearing in your room would translate to the rest of the world?
Well, the first room that I built, I was coming from the world of film. I was thinking it's a big, huge, wide room. I had PMCs in that room, and it was set up more of like a film kind of room.
Sure.
A lot of focus on the cricket, the center channel. Sorry, I gotta quit calling it that. People get mad at me when I say that. I'm not a fan of the center channel, but anyways, I built it not knowing really. I didn't know what I was doing. So, and that was before really. If I had the room in my place, I'd be 916 all day long. I would definitely. There's just not enough room in my room. It's small, but I guess the hardest part is always, it's like mixing in stereo or anything else. The hardest part is, for most people, is figuring out the low end, what's enough, what's not enough. You know, that takes a minute. And then figuring out how it's going to translate as far as placement. That took a while. At first it was a lot of, you know, trial and error, because we didn't have a real good way back in those days to you know, the MP4 thing wasn't really groovy, and the high-res bin, you know, thing didn't exist at that time. So it was a lot of, you know, flipping chord. And I think that's cool, you know, but now it's you know, once you've done this many mixes, I better know what I'm doing. I'm in trouble. but no, it's yeah.
And we've got some best practices that we can share with you on what to think about as you're designing your room, and what a certified service partner will do in your room when they come in, and what they're going to be looking for. It's, you know, it's aiming, it's placement, it's SPL, it's delay, it's all of these things that they're going to, you know, make sure are measured correctly and are placed correctly, that you can do a lot of advanced research on yourself.
Is there such a thing? I know you used to qualify rooms for Dolby.
Yeah.
Like back in Los Angeles, you did it.
Yeah, Dolby doesn't certify rooms. We don't certify music rooms, but there's a set of best practices that you should certainly follow. And if you meet minimum specifications, you can, in some cases, choose to be part of the studio directory that we have on our site. But there are just too many music rooms around the world for Dolby to certify them, so we don't do a certification, so to speak. We also don't certify mix engineers, but there are platforms out there like Engineers, Derek Ali's platform, or Avid or Abbey Road Institute, that if you desire a certification, you could earn one there as well. But in terms of like Dolby's certification on your room, it's not something that we do.
Great. Thanks so much.
But the best practices are definitely something that can get you to where you'll meet, you know, minimum specifications or greater.
Yeah, you definitely want to start off with a tuned room, especially if this is new. Because you can learn on anything. I mean, half of us in this room probably mixed on NS10s. Enough said. You know, you can learn on anything. But this is if you want to get where you're making commercial releasable stuff faster, have them guys, because it changed I went about 6 months before Brian could get to me, because it was crazy time, but we weren't really busy at that, so it didn't matter, and I had a lot of practice time.
Yeah.
But once he turned the room, man, it was great. Yeah. So yeah, made a big difference.
Thanks so much.
And we've done a couple of community sessions on room tuning and on layout and design that might be interesting for you, that we can make sure you have access to. Yeah.
What do you find that there's one type of monitor controller that does the job better than others?
I mean, it's really down to preference.
Okay.
You know, see a lot of Graces out in the world, see a lot of other things, you know.
Right.
I've got a dad mom in mine. So
See a lot of those. Yep.
You know.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thanks, Jeff.
Hey.
Appreciate
fun,
you, man.
Fun.
Give it up for Jeff.
Yeah, hey, thank God. Hey.